I pulled into my driveway on a Tuesday evening, and my stomach just dropped. My brand new Tesla Cybertruck, the one I bought to celebrate early retirement, and a little bit of my inner kid, sat there with the windshield spidered side mirrors hanging, and compliance violations sprayed across the hood in screaming red. I stepped out glass, crunching under my shoes, and saw a man by my mailbox in a crisp uniform badge, catching the streetlight like he was born to flash it. He walked up with that tough guy stride and said, "Mr. Elliott, I'm Larry Clark, HOA Security Division. You've ignored notices for weeks. This is authorized enforcement." The words came out so clean, so official, I almost doubted my own eyes. Then my brain snapped back. I pulled my phone, hit record, told him to show me the bylaw that lets a contractor smash a resident's car, then called 911. 2 officers rolled in, gave Larry's badge and paperwork a long look, played it neutral, and then, like a final piece sliding into place, our HOA president arrived. Harold Mitchell, 8 years in popular for being prepared, fair, neighborly. He shook hands with the officers, kept his voice calm. Said Larry was a consultant, but this damage was far beyond anything they'd ever authorize. The officers called it an internal governance mess, took photos, took statements, and left us standing in my driveway with broken glass, a uniform, and a president who sounded like a responsible adult. Harold turned to me, apologized, called it unacceptable, pulled an actual checkbook, and before I gave a single estimate, he wrote me a personal check for $6,000, tucked it into a neatly labeled folder, and promised to suspend Larry Retrain Contractors' tighten guidelines. On paper, and in the moment, it felt like accountability, like the system working. You know what I mean. The next day, Larry strolled past my mailbox again. No uniform this time, just sunglasses and a polo, and said with a grin, "I'm off duty, but community safety doesn't take breaks. I'll be around as a concerned resident." Yeah, that happened. I called Harold, and he sounded worried, even whispered that he might need a restraining order if Larry kept inserting himself. It all sounded so reasonable, so ready, so polished. That was the part that started scraping at me. The quick check, the exact number, the pre-labeled folder, the perfect answers at every beat. That evening, my neighbor Susan waved me over. She's the kind of person who notices patterns because she actually cares. Over tea, she said, "Chase, this isn't the first time those two showed up as a pair. Remember when Robert on Cedar Lane got spooked about night patrols and sold fast at a discount? Harold was all concern, Larry was all flashlight, and the house changed hands in a blink." The line between coincidence and choreography started to fade. I called my law school friend Claire Davis, who lives and breathes HOA disputes. She dug through public records and called me back with the kind of pause that means the news is heavy. Mitchell Clark Community Solutions. She said an LLC registered at Harold's home address, and both names listed as equal managing partners. 11 months old. I could hear my own breath in the quiet kitchen. I confronted Harold, and he pivoted into the soft confession. Larry had fallen on hard times. Harold had loaned him a business address. Lines got crossed, boundaries, failed his fault for not supervising better. He sounded sincere, like a pastor who just learned a deacon skimmed from the basket. But the facts kept piling up. The next morning, insomnia drove me to a 24-hour diner at sunrise, and who walks in like it's a standing breakfast? Harold and Larry, comfortable as brothers, or booth-clipped voices, that easy rhythm 2 coworkers get when they've rehearsed the script. Later that day, Harold called with a new story. Family ties, ex-brother obligation, the kind of tale that asks for sympathy even as it asks you to ignore the obvious. Meanwhile, Claire traced a stream of consulting payments from Harold's personal account to their company over 10 months, and other neighbors started coming forward with identical conversations about vulnerabilities and safer options and quick offers to help you transition. The pattern had a shape: find a pressure point, add visibility, accelerate the decision, acquire the property under market. Susan became the cracked door we needed. She records garden notes on her phone, and it turns out she left it running during one of Harold's security consultations. What we heard knocked the air out of my chest. Harold's voice crisp and casual. Another target ready for pressure application. She's already researching senior facilities, so the standard visibility sequence should motivate a sale in 60 days. Larry chimed in like an eager student. Evening patrols increase compliance fastest with elderly targets. 2 nights a week or 4 for acceleration. Pressure application. Visibility sequence. Acquisition phase. None of this sounded like HOA safety. It sounded like a business plan for fear. We booked an emergency HOA meeting for Thursday night. The room was packed shoulder to shoulder, the kind of electric quiet you get seconds before a storm. Harold took the front with a binder and his calm tone talking about misunderstandings. Steps taken leadership under pressure. I plugged my phone into the sound system and hit play. The recording filled the room, every syllable sharp. Target pressure acquisition. You could feel people tracing those words back to their own late-night porch sweeps, to the way a flashlight beam had lingered on a living room window, to the sudden knock followed by a friendly suggestion to consider relocating for safety. Harold tried to spin. He said blackmail, manipulation, family obligations. And then Larry detonated the lies himself. From the back of the room, he shouted, "You promised nobody would connect the partnership. You recruited me. You wrote the scripts. You told me which phrases would sound official, when to call you so you could play hero." It didn't sound like a meltdown. It sounded like a ledger finally read aloud. Here's the part I didn't see coming. The FBI had already started poking around because computers notice when a guy on a fixed retirement income is moving money like a boutique developer. Agent Sarah Wilson from White Collar Crimes called me after the meeting went local news viral. They had flagged Harold's cash deposits months earlier, tied them to property flips run through shell companies, and when they executed the warrants, they found it all. An 87-page training manual covering victim profiles, intimidation rhythms, disguised as enhanced visibility sample scripts for legitimate interactions, and spreadsheets mapping profit splits like a franchise model. They even had undercover recordings of Harold selling this method to other HOA officials as effective community transition, explaining how to keep everything technically defensible while pushing a family to sell voluntarily. Court felt like a slow-motion mirror. Every neighbor saw their piece of the pattern reflected at scale. The prosecutor laid out the money trail. The shell entities. The unreported income that stacked near $500,000 in under 2 years. The manual that read like a playbook for weaponizing authority. Margaret testified about flashlights sweeping her windows at 11 p.m. The quiet fear that wore her down until she sold $68,000 under market. Robert described repeated concerned visits from Harold about his home business deliveries and a perfectly timed below-market offer from an LLC he had never heard of. Larry took the stand after a deal and admitted the whole arc. The fake authority, the scripts, the training seminars, the Cybertruck vandalism. He said Harold studied my police academy rejections and my need for a badge, then built a role that made me feel legitimate while I did what he planned. It hurt to hear, but it was the truth we needed. The jury didn't take long. Harold was convicted on federal conspiracy, wire fraud, mail fraud, tax evasion, witness tampering, sentenced to 12 years, more than $500,000 in restitution, and banned for life from HOA work. Larry, who cooperated and actually seemed sorry, got 4 years and a bar from security jobs. Watching Harold leave in shackles felt like air returning to the room after years of quiet suffocation. 6 years passed. Larry got out, started in construction, now volunteers, teaching seniors how to spot fake authority. He looks smaller, without the swagger, more human with the shame. Harold, well, last I heard, he still lectures anyone stuck near him about community management best practices, which probably explains his nickname inside. As for me, the house Harold bragged about from the dais went into foreclosure. I bought it at 41% of its value and turned it into a fraud prevention campus. We run classes for homeowners, train new board members, help victims, and build simple transparency tools. We call it the Elliott Protocol. Standard disclosures, clear contractor limits, easy reporting. A boring name for a framework that keeps bullies from hiding behind bylaws. A state bill, named after our case, set real penalties for using fake authority to coerce sales, and if you ever think testimony doesn't matter, I promise you it can move a law, if enough people stand behind the microphone. I thought it was over until last week, when I got a call from someone who used to coordinate Harold's weekend trainings. She said what we knocked down was one pillar, that the playbook migrated to other counties with different names on the letterhead and the same script in the background. I don't know yet if she's exaggerating or handing me a map, but I do know this: the only cure for a shadow is more light. So here's where I leave it with you. If a uniform without a real badge number tells you what you can and can't do on your own property, if a friendly president shows up with a binder and a pre-written check, if you feel that cold drip of intimidation dressed up as safety, you are not crazy. Ask for the policy in writing. Ask for the authority's authority document. Everything, talk to your neighbors. Then put your evidence on a table where everyone can see. Now tell me what you think. Was Larry a manipulated pawn or a willing partner who deserved the same time as Harold, or HOAs a necessary guardrail or a magnet for small-time power? Where is the line between protecting a neighborhood and policing people out of it? Drop your stories, your takes, your receipts in the comments, and if you want the follow-up on that phone call and the network, it hints at hit like, subscribe, and say the word. Justice is louder when we talk to each other.